All right. I am lucky enough to be joined here with a good buddy of mine, Josh, aka Starchild in the gaming world, what have you. He goes by many names, but I have been looking forward to this for a while now. Project Hail Mary is one of the most anticipated blockbusters of 2026. And Josh actually read the book. And is a big fan of the property. So we both watched the movie, and we haven't talked about it yet. So I really just want to, Josh, why don't you just start by giving us a little bit of a background on your history with the book, how you feel about it, and just your overall general impression on the movie. I'm so curious.
Sure, yeah. I'm so excited too. I you texted me the other day and wanted to talk about this, and I was just like, oh man, I just have no idea if Dan's gonna like this movie, if he's not. And so I'm excited to just get your thoughts on this. But yeah, I mean, just as far as my history with it, me and my brother recently got into reading probably about 2 years ago, and this was just one of those books that I saw at Barnes& and Noble one day, and I Googled it real quick, found one YouTuber or TikTok, uh, bro that I found, that agreed with a lot of what books I liked, and so I knew we had similar tastes, and he was just ranting and raving about this book. And one of the first things he said was, "Don't look into it, don't spoil it, don't read anything online about it, go into it completely blind." And that's exactly what I did. And since I've got back into reading, and when I say get back into reading, I never really read as an adult. I did my, mandatory reading in high school.
Right.
So this is like a new little hobby for me for sure. But yeah, I mean, since I've gotten into reading as an adult, this is probably my number one book. I have not enjoyed
Really?
any. Oh, 100%. I mean, a lot of what I read are like trilogies and like, series that are like, four, five, six, 7 books long. And this being a standalone book is just such a breath of fresh air. I'm sure you kind of probably feel
Hmm.
that way sometimes even with movies, right? It's just like sequel after sequel, new Star Wars, whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, this just being a standalone book, I read it. I read it in 2 days. I read it in a weekend, which is saying a lot for me. And recommended it to my brother, said, "You gotta read this book." He read it, he loved it as well, and we've uh, just kind of passed it down. We even had, I think there was 8 of us total that went to go see it in IMAX, on release day, and we had, one more buddy, of ours who even picked it up, read it in a weekend, and same thing. So it just seems to be, at least in my group of friends, just a book that just it just hits it just hits what we're looking for, I guess. So, yeah, it's kind of my history, and so I had very high expectations going into this movie, knowing full well that it was probably going to be a little bit of a disappointment since I'm just one of those snobby people now that read the book beforehand. Um,
Of
but
course.
yeah, that's kind of my history with it, and then we can get into our thoughts and everything here in a second.
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I kind of want to just hear what your reaction was for. I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with the directors. I remember you and I spoke about this probably a year and a half almost ago when this movie was in development, and you mentioned it, and I remember you telling me about that you were reading this book, and I said, why does that title sound familiar? And then I realized that, oh, wait a minute, this is a movie that's in production. And I remember reading about that it was like from this very acclaimed book from something Weir is the author. I,
Andy Weir, yes.
Andy Weir. And he famously also wrote The Martian, which is now a critically acclaimed movie. But it was a different director. I guess the guy who wrote the script adaptation for this movie also wrote the Martian script, which was interesting. But completely different directors. These movies are very different, even though they're both like space kind of survival movies in a way. But yeah, uh, so I need to just hear like your just I have to, we'll go through like different just points individually, but just overall, were you satisfied with the overall movie? Were you like completely ecstatic about it? You know, how was everyone else feeling? Like Aaron, who read the book, what was the overall vibe?
Yeah, that's I've been
Uh-oh.
trying to find the right word to describe my feelings about it, and I think you just nailed it by just saying I was satisfied. I was
Okay.
satisfied. I was not blown away. I was not disappointed. I was satisfied with it. I think, especially after sleeping on it now for a couple nights, I was initially coming out of the movie, I was a little bit kind of man, I don't know the words. I don't want to say disappointed, but I was just a little, I don't know, unfulfilled maybe. I just a lot of people had been talking up the movie, and unfortunately, I just have the knowledge and the experience of reading the book. And I feel like reading the book is just a superior way of getting the story. You're just able to spend more time. Are we just going straight in with spoilers, right? Like
Oh
I'm
yes,
not.
good point.
Okay.
Yes,
All
yeah,
right.
straight spoilers. Yeah,
Straight
good,
spoilers here,
good
right?
point.
You just get more time with Rocky. Um, this movie was 2.5 hours. I wouldn't have wanted it to be any longer, but at the same time, there was lots of things that were missing because that's just what happens when you move a book into a movie. So overall, I was satisfied. I do think if I watched it again, which I do plan on, I'll enjoy it more. But the first time you're watching a movie and you know the story and you've read the book, it's impossible, at least for me, to not just compare everything and to just go, oh, that was different, or they didn't do this, or they changed that, or whatever it might be. But overall, yes, I enjoyed it. I did not walk out unhappy. It was definitely an enjoyable movie, and I was excited more so than anything to just see a lot of people who hadn't read the book walk out of the theater enjoying it and saying that was great. I enjoyed that. Rocky was awesome. Was laughing the entire time, whatever they might have said. So, yeah, those are kind of my overall thoughts.
Okay, interesting. All right, I was expecting. I watched this movie, and I didn't. I usually, typically, if it's a movie I'm anticipating, I won't. I'll hear just mumblings here and there, but I won't like read any specific reviews or listen to anything in detail, like podcasts about it going into depth. But yeah, I knew it was a very high bar being set. This movie's getting really hyped up and getting a lot of great reactions and reviews. So I saw it Saturday afternoon, and yeah, here's what I'll say about Project Hail Mary. I think this is a very, very good movie. As someone that did not read the book, I just want to start with that. I think as just as quote unquote objective as I can be, which it's all subjective, but like just in a vacuum, I think it is a very, very good movie in a lot of different aspects, and I have a lot of good things to say about it. But when I'm, obviously, like we all just have our personal tastes with things, and for me, while I can acknowledge that it's all really good, it was a lot of just the tone that wasn't really my thing, but that's okay. Everyone in the theater was really enjoying it. I just, there's something about the lightheartedness is just a little bit not really my thing. Especially with these like space save the world movies. I don't know why, like I just prefer darker tones. And then I did think about it too. And I had this thought in my head where I thought, is this a movie that is like aimed towards a little bit of a younger audience? Because if I saw this when I was much younger, I feel like this would be like Citizen Kane to me. This would be the coolest thing if I was much younger. But I actually, the more I think about it, the more I think that's kind of a really jaded way to look at it, because I did kind of think, I think all of the lightheartedness and the whimsicalness of the movie, and it's like a really hopeful story. And I feel like just because it's not like, because I'm just so jaded and cynical, I'm like, just because it's a really good, like, feel good, hopeful message at the end, and and it's just a really lighthearted, like, doesn't mean it's necessarily aimed younger. I think that was like a stupid knee-jerk reaction on my part when I was first thinking about it. So no, I think there's a lot to really love about it, but then I also was really interested in what was different from the book. And I did hear a couple of, I think there was one panel I was listening to where someone was like you, someone that read the book and did kind of have a similar perspective as you did. And he did, give the caveat that, listen, I know it's like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, I read the book, but, but he was, and he kind of was saying the same thing. He was saying, I liked the movie, but there was a big but, so but yeah. So that's just my general reaction. But yeah. I guess the first thing that I noticed that I wanted to start with, that I actually thought was really interesting when I learned, was the structure of the movie. So there's a really big thing that a lot of TV shows will do now, and movies, that I can't stand. And I thought this movie was doing that, but it wasn't. And then I later found out the context. Where you ever like watch a movie or like a show, like the pilot of a new TV show, and it has to start with like an action scene or get you right into the action right away, and
Sure.
then it kind of goes into like, because it has to like grab your attention, because we have no attention spans anymore, and then it has to go like, you're probably wondering how I got here, and then it flashes back to like,
Oh, I see exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
So I kind of thought when they started on the spaceship, I thought, oh no, is this what we're doing? Because obviously we have no idea why he's there or what the context is.
Sure.
And then but then I quickly realized, oh, okay, this is going to be throughout the entire movie, of flashing between, when he's on Earth and he's starting the mission and on the ship. And I actually kind of like that choice. Typically I prefer linear, but I like where it climaxes, I guess. I actually really like that moment. At the end.
If I can quickly, because I just want to quickly interject, because
Yes, yeah,
this was
please.
a big talking point after the movie, with both people who had read the book and who hadn't. And so I have a question I'm going to ask you, and if for any of your viewers who are watching, I'm curious if you've seen the movie, what they can answer in the comments or whatever. But when you were watching the movie and you were experiencing or watching the flashback parts, did you feel that those flashbacks were just happening for us as the viewer of the movie? Or did you feel that Ryland was also experiencing those flashbacks and was getting those memories back?
Yeah. So I know the context now. I heard someone talk about this. So I, as someone that didn't read the book, I just thought that they were just flashbacks for the audience.
I agree.
However, I do recall, because I was a little, in the end of the movie, it all made sense to me. But there was a line of dialogue that I picked up on where he said somewhere in the middle of the movie to Rocky, he said, I lost my memory, or I'm gaining my memory back, or something. And that stuck in my but I'll let you explain the context.
Well, I mean, for me watching the movie, I did not feel that Ryland's character was experiencing these flashbacks, which is a huge, like, right. I mean, the movie started off just like the book, right? He wakes
okay.
up. you're on the spaceship as you know, the character Rylan Grace has no idea what's happening, and obviously you as the reader, right? You have no idea what's happening. So they started off exactly like that, which I think is important. Where
Sure.
there was a lot of disagreement is some people, after they watched the movie, said yes. They were like, I do think they made it apparent, or I don't want to say obvious because I don't think it was obvious, that Rylan was also experiencing these memories, these flashbacks as we were watching them. And I just didn't feel that way. And in the book, it is very clear and obvious. Like Rylan will see a piece of paper, like his dissertation, right? That talked about
Hmm.
how, you know, he wrote a paper while trying to get his doctorate about how life does not need water or carbon or hydrogen or whatever it is.
Mm.
And when he sees that on the ship, right, he like has the flashback of like that memory of Strat coming to him going, "Hey, I saw you." Right? And so it's like in the book, these things happen. He sees his dead, you know, co-pilot and stuff, right? And these people, and this is how he starts getting bits and pieces back. He realizes like, "Wait, why am I saying fudge and frick instead of right the swear word?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he starts to piece together, "Oh my gosh, wait, I think I'm a teacher." The hack, like there are all these things that trigger him getting his memories back, which also obviously as the reader allows you to learn about what is happening. And I guess I don't want to get to the what I would consider the climax quite yet because I know we're still early on. But when he when he has the flashback of realizing how he really got where he was, that was a punch in the stomach in the book. As the reader, you're like, "Oh my gosh." And I just felt like that was lacking in the movie. I don't think they made it obvious that he realized truly what happened to get him on this ship where he is. So,
Mm. Yeah, I completely agree. There was yeah, there I learned about this afterwards because that was my first interesting question when I came out of the movie was that structure the same in the book, or was it uh made for the movie? Like did they break it up for the movie for like a modern audience that has no attention span? But then I learned like, oh no, that actually is what happens in the book, how
yep,
it's structured. And then
yep.
I heard someone, like you just said, talk about how yeah, the it is meant to be him regaining his memory back, and that is a huge part of the book. And I
Yes.
agree. I thought, and the guy that I heard said the exact same thing. He said it was not apparent to me, like, or just it felt like that he was having flashbacks as it was in the book. And I agree. I was like, I remember him. There was a line of dialogue in the movie where at one point he did say, "Oh, I lost my memory." So that or something. He had some sort of line to that
It's right at the
effect.
beginning, right? I mean, he literally wakes up and he says something along that lines. But I mean, that's just the story of this movie, I feel like too. Is that there are a lot of explanations that are done once. And if you miss it,
Right.
then you're out, right? Like you just
Yeah.
you missed it.
I do completely agree. I do wish it was a little bit more apparent that he was also experiencing these flashbacks with the audience, like as his memory. That could have been done better for sure. Uh, but yeah. So that was the first thing that I noticed. What did you now? One of the so I have though heard that the book though is very funny and very jokey. I think you told me that even when we talked about it a while ago. What did you think of the jokey tone, like the almost I don't want to say this as an insult, but like the almost Marvel level quipping?
Sure. Yeah.
Did that seem? I hate to say it.
No,
Yeah, but that's what it kind of felt like. It felt like Marvel, like he's right behind me, isn't there? Isn't he? But
so yeah, so the book the character Rylan Grace is he's a quirky, funny character, right? And
sure.
the book, and once again, it's just a different type of medium, right? When you're reading a book, you interpret my interpretation of this character and the way he's interacting and perceiving the world is going to be slightly different than yours if you read the book. When you
True.
watch a movie, you can kind of debate about, right? But like,
It's the
there's
director's vision coming to life, not
there's
yours.
not as much discrepancy between it. It's like Ryan Gosling's performance is his performance, and the theme and the feelings that they wanted to provoke in the character, in the story, like they're either going to do it or they're not, right? There's less like interpretation and more so just like, did they do it well or did they not do it well? And I think it was done well. I think it was slightly, not crazy, but slightly more lighthearted and funny than the book.
Mm.
I think one of the big things is a lot of the intenseness of what's happening comes from the flashbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to dive right into like, and once again, I don't want this to come off. I just every time I talk about this movie with people, I just feel so snotty and like
No, I was
hate
so I
it, but
almost
like,
wanted to kind of just interview you about this more, because I was so afraid that I was just gonna say like, oh, it's really good, it's just not really my thing, like, or it was mainly my main hang up with the whole thing was just the tone, which wasn't my thing, but
yeah, I
that's
get
it.
that,
But I liked it. Yeah.
and they could have gone a different direction. I'm not surprised that they did or didn't. I don't know if it would. I feel like it would have been less successful. But
Sure.
they clearly decided, they made their decision to kind of go more the quirky direction and spend more time on the ship than they do in the past, because the past is where all of the intenseness comes from. Him on the ship working together with Rocky, there are some intense moments, and you see that in the movie. But the character of Strat, which by the way, I've been asking people like, what was the name of the general girl, right? Because I legitimately think they mentioned it like once or twice in the movie. And I've talked to so many people who are like, yeah, I don't even remember her name, right?
I
And once again, I just feel like that was because you didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with her. And
yeah.
she is such a badass in the movie. Like,
Oh, really?
like her presence, like she's running the world, right? Like she walks into conferences and rooms with like the Chinese government and like all of these different like Senate people. And she's just like, listen, this is what I need. You can't say no to me. This is what we're doing. I need to save the world, right? Like the power that she has is unfettered, and like nobody has ever had the power that she has had, right? And she literally sets off nukes in the book on the
Really?
poles. There nukes, it's a whole chapter about how they need more time, so they purposely try to create global warming to keep the planet warm, because the planet is cooling because the sun is cooling. And so in order to buy themselves like 7 more years or
Oh.
something, they set off nukes in the oceans to like break off the ice caps to create global warming. In order to farm the astrophage, there's chapters about how they literally built like these solar panels and like blacked out the Sahara Desert, right? In order to create this energy so they could farm more astrophage, because they needed the astrophage as fuel to get Project Hail Mary to Tau Ceti. Like, there's so much of the intenseness of what they had to do and what's actually going on back at Earth, where there's less of the quirkiness that really brings the gravity of the situation and what's happening. And because they can't make a movie that's 5 hours long, they had
Right.
to get rid of that. And I understand why, but that's why I think you feel the way that you do, and I feel the way that I do, is just because, they had to make those decisions, and I'm not arguing against them, but because of that, these are our feelings, I feel like now. So, yeah, there's
Yeah.
like lots of other things I could say, but I don't want to just sit here and talk about, every detail that was not in the movie, but yeah.
That blows my mind. Because I was so curious of how much I'm not getting. Okay, so yeah, like how you said how Strat didn't feel like a very big character in this movie. When I was watching this, and obviously I already had the knowledge, but I wonder if I watched this movie, probably not, I'm not that smart, but like, and I didn't know it was based on a book, I wonder if I would have guessed it, because it feels like again, I'm probably just thinking this bias knowing that it was based on a popular book, but I was watching this movie feeling like, I feel as if there are parts of this story I'm not getting. I kind of felt that.
For sure.
Especially because when you really break it down, like it's like a 2 hour and 40-minute movie or something like that. And really the only characters in reality are Ryan Gosling, Strat, and Kevin and Rocky, but Kevin, right? Or Carl. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, I feel like I don't really like get a good sense of not like necessarily their backstory but like who they are and their role in this story. I feel like there's a lot of that missing here. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Also, it's been a little bit since I've read the book. I believe Carl was a made up character for the movie.
Wait, are you
Solely,
serious?
I believe so, and I only say that because when he is researching the astrophage
Yes,
in the
in the
lab
beginning.
and stuff, you have to understand we're reading a book. So and the book is written in like a first person perspective where it's like we are hearing his thoughts. So he's able to talk
Okay.
to himself in the book about what he's seeing in the microscope and what he's testing and what he's doing. You can't do that in a movie. He has to be talking to somebody, all right? Unless, I mean, I guess they could have had him talking out loud, talking to himself, but clearly they didn't go that way. So in order to hear what's happening, I think they made up that character Carl so that he had somebody to talk to, and while he's running the test and figuring things out, he's able to like talk through his thoughts and stuff like that. So Carl, I'm almost 95% certain was not a real character in the book. And yeah, the whole scene that I was in the trailers when, I mean, now we're really getting to spoilers,
Sure.
right? When he finds out, that he's going on this trip, whether he likes it or not. And Carl says, yeah, what does he say? Like, you're going to do great. You're going to do great. I feel like that was like a big punchline, right? I don't believe that's a scene that happens in the book. So yeah, he was a character that was created. So
I just googled it. It's literally exactly what you just said. It said no, Carl does not appear in the book. It was created for the movie to provide a character for Ryland Grace to talk to.
Okay, that's exactly what I thought. So here's a question that I have for you, and I've been doing this with everybody else, and so you can answer this however you like. I've been asking people because I'm curious how much of the plot, right, the real story did people get. So if you could give me your quick 60, 90-second, like, what happened? What is this movie about? What happens? Or more, the most important thing to me is what happens at the end, right? After they figure out how to save the world, what is your understanding of what happened in this movie?
So, you know what? Oh my God. And I was watching the movie. I'd like to think, maybe just because I watch a lot of movies, not because I'd like to think I actually was, I think I was following the plot pretty well and what the mission was and what was happening. I know there was like a lot more science-y stuff in the book and science talk. But I think I was able to follow most of it. So the idea was that the Earth is cooling and all of the surroundings. No. Yeah, or because the sun is dying and they have about like 30 years or something, and all of like these surrounding stars around our sun are also dying except for one. And so, which was actually correct, but so the idea was to send Ryland Grace and the crew to that one star that wasn't dying to, it actually was just observe it and see what's up and just kind of
to figure out why it's not dying. Right?
Sure.
Yes.
And then from there with their drone devices, it's a suicide mission, but they can then send back their findings to Earth.
Correct.
So then, yeah.
Cool. Okay. I mean, yeah, that's it in a nutshell, right? If you want to give like the punchline of the movie, the sun is dying. I also just love doing this, right? Because in the book, it's probably written hundreds of times.
Laid out a lot more.
What is killing the sun? Do you know the name of it?
No. Wait, I don't even wait. See, I don't even. I see. Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't even know. Like, do we ever find out exactly the reason what's killing the sun?
Yeah, it's called astrophage,
maybe.
Right? And so this is my point. Like, you shouldn't feel bad for not knowing because you only get it's only explained like a couple times. So once again, if you miss
and very quick, yeah,
and it's very quick. So it's this thing called astrophage. And it's essentially this like cell, amoeba, organism, whatever, that is eating the light and the energy. And it also then uses that light to travel. So what you also might not have picked up on, which I always thought was a cool thing in the book, is the astrophage, which is killing the sun, is also the fuel they use in order to travel at like light speeds to get to Tau Ceti, which is the star that is not dying, right?
Oh, that's all I gathered was that they were using for fuel. I didn't realize that. Yes. Okay. See, I didn't realize that was also the cause.
Correct. Yes. So then obviously they get to Tau Ceti. He meets Rocky. They start doing all sorts of tests. And I listen, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen this movie or haven't read this book, I'm telling you, everybody's like, oh, I don't need the science. The way Andy Weir explains the science is so satisfying. And so, like, you don't need to be a scientist. He explains it well, and it just makes the story feel so much more real when you actually understand what is happening and how the astrophage actually functions and works. And when they finally find a predator, right, something to eat it basically, right, and destroy it, it's super satisfying. And in the movie, right, it happens so quickly that literally I think it's in like 10-15 seconds as Rocky, after Rocky went through his whole thing and almost died, right? Literally so they capture the predator. He calls it Taumoeba, okay, because it's from Tau Ceti, so he calls it that's where the Tau come from, and then it's an amoeba like based life form or whatever, so he calls it Taumoeba.
Okay.
They start doing all of these tests in the book to try to make sure that the Taumoeba is going to work. Well, they end up learning that the Taumoeba can't survive in like, I think it's like nitrogen-based atmospheres, which is like most atmospheres other than Tau Ceti, right? So there was the only way Tau Ceti was able to survive was because it didn't have like nitrogen in its atmosphere. So this Taumoeba was able to survive, which eats the astrophage, which keeps it in balance and keeps it from destroying the star, right?
Okay.
But there's a bunch of nitrogen on Earth. And so what Ryland and Rocky have to do is they slowly start to introduce the Taumoeba on the spaceship to nitrogen, right? Slowly but surely, like building up its immune system, if you will. Okay. And so it's slowly building up its immune system. And finally, when they get it to the point where it can survive the amount of nitrogen that's like in Earth's atmosphere, is when they finally part ways. And then here's my question that I've asked everybody. Do you know what happened to Rocky's spaceship when they separated?
Yes,
no, it's okay. Like
no, well, I remember I understood he did. I understood what he was
in like 5 seconds, though. You know what I mean? Like that's
he did say like, oh, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's like I didn't understand but I knew like he said the reason, and his ship is fucked. Like, and
But
I gotta go.
that is my like that. I guess that's why I'm shocked that so many people enjoy this movie, because if it was me and I hadn't read the book, I would have so many questions. Why did this happen? Why didn't this happen? How did this happen? And in the book, they're all answered, but in the movie, they're not. So, in a nutshell, when they were building the Talmiba against the nitrogen, right? Like making it immune to the nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
It was happening in little xenonite capsules that Rocky builds. Okay, and the xenonite is like a
Oh.
make-believe element because xenon is just a gas. But in this story, right, like Rocky's species has figured out how to like solidify it basically. And that's like a whole thing that's skipped out. And Ryland's like amazed by this like substance, and he's like, I can't wait to bring it back to Earth and show everybody like this xenonite. It's so cool. So anyway, they're building it in all this xenonite stuff, and basically the Talmiba, as a living bacteria organism, whatever you want to call it, starts to adapt just like it adapts to the nitrogen and learns how to penetrate through the xenonite, which is what Rocky's entire ship is made of. So when
Right, right,
Rocky
right.
brings the Talmiba onto his ship, it is able to penetrate his entire ship. It finds his fuel lines and eats all of his astrophage, which means he has no fuel. And Rylan learns this when he has a leak in his own ship. He's able to like stop it soon enough. And since his entire ship isn't made of xenonite, he ends up like conserving enough fuel, but he knows Rocky's screwed. And so he makes the decision to send the Beatles, the drones out to save the world, but then go back and save Rocky. And that's just like, once again, just such a big part of the book that happens in like 15 seconds
I
in
think,
the movie,
yeah,
right? So
I think where my mind was following, yeah, it ended up being kind of weirdly, like, you know, paced out, like where, because we had them have the big mission where they go into the pod together, and then we have that scare where Ryan Gosling almost dies, and then Rocky saves him and kind of sacrifices himself to save Rylan. And my mind, I wasn't really so worried about the like in the moment. All my mind was going to was, oh, that little fucking rock thing is dead. That is going to be the thing. I said, there's no way that little rock thing is coming out of this alive. So that's where I was. And I guess, and at this point we were so far into the movie, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was partially just me probably not fully like comprehending where we were at in the mission, because even though we were so far along in the movie and then they go their separate ways, I kind of thought to myself, oh, wait a minute, that I think was like the big third act. Like that was the big mission, like,
Yeah.
or the big climax in a way in space. And I didn't even really think about it that way, because all I was thinking was, oh, is Rocky gonna survive or not? And then I kind of like snapped out of it and was like, oh, wait a minute, that was it, that was the big thing. So that's kind of where my mind was, which was fine, but I don't know, I was kind of yeah I was thrown by that. It is a little weird. I'm so curious. I feel like I would love for you to I mean, obviously, I don't know, but like if you also had read The Martian and then watched the Martian movie, I would love to see like the comparison. Because The Martian is a much different tone. I guess the it's funny when the trailer first came out for this movie, you were saying and I think I've heard other people say this, of what a disappointment it was that they revealed Rocky in the trailer.
Yes.
And that was a huge reveal in the book, right? That it was like, or just a huge like revelation.
Yeah, you get about I think the book is about 350 pages, and I think it's a it's on like page 90 where Ryland um sees a spaceship, right? So you haven't even met
Oh.
Rocky yet. You're just like, oh my god, there's there's somebody else out here, right? Um, and so you get about a third. You get about a third of the way through the book, and you don't even realize that this is going to be a book that might potentially have, extraterrestrial life. And so that was definitely one of the biggest disappointments with the trailer is spoiling that. I understand why though, because it's such a big part of the story. But also my question to you is what were your thoughts on Rocky? Did you like him as a character? Was he like did you care at all? Were you sad at all when you thought like he was getting hurt, almost died, like whatever?
Um, I had almost no investment
Yeah,
emotionally in the story, to
which
be
is
honest.
which
And you
is
know what?
so
And
sad.
I hate saying that because I actually really really appreciated that it wasn't even I actually really liked that I didn't know much about Ryland Grace. I liked that he didn't like have a daughter or a family back home that we kept cutting to. Like I actually kind of liked that he was just some uh like loner guy, who had
Okay.
some crazy papers. I actually really liked that as a story choice. Um because I just feel like it's always cliche that like he has a family back home, yada yada yada. Um no, yeah, I just kept feeling like even though I understood, I was really excited watching it. I mean, yeah, because it's twofold because you're watching the mission unfold, and then you're trying to figure out as they keep cutting back to Earth. I'm thinking, where is that climax going to go of how he ends up being the one on the ship? Like, what is that going to be? I didn't know where that was going to go, so I almost was more invested in what was going on Earth than I was in space because a lot of it just felt like him bonding with Rocky and then the quick beats to progress the story forward. It was hanging with Rocky,
Yeah.
bonding with Rocky, and I was like, okay, all the kids clap like fucking seals and laugh, and I was like, yeah, sure, it's cute, like
Can I just say my favorite scene in the movie
sure, sure.
was the scene where he is sitting at the desk with Strat and he's going, "I can't do it, right? I can't do it.
See, oh,
I don't have it in me." And you can see, I mean, it was just so performed so well by both those actors, but both Ryan and I don't know the actress that plays Strat, but she did a fantastic job.
hmm,
And just
uh,
the emotion of that scene. But I will say they went a little quirky, right? He starts like
thank you,
trying to
thank
step on
you.
the desk and all that stuff. And that scene in the book, once again, I don't remember it, but I don't remember there being any like quirky lightheartedness. It was like, wow, they literally had to sedate him and force him onto the ship. He wanted no part of it. He's essentially a coward and didn't want to do it. And when you're reading that, that's like, whoa, right? And it's like, you always can relate more to characters in any, movie, book when they're flawed and they're far from perfect. And you learn, right? Oh my gosh, he did not like step up and be like, I'll go save. Like they literally had to knock him out, right? And so, although that was my favorite scene of the movie, it was still just missing, and once again, I think more so than the quirkiness, it was the fact that I did not think they made it readily apparent that Rylan on the ship was experiencing this flashback. When he experiences and remembers, "Oh my god, I didn't wanna be here," right? It's one of the only times I think he, like, swears in the book, and he's basically like, "Shit, I I I I tried to not even I'm not I didn't want to be here." And to me, it just didn't hit as hard in the movie,
See,
unfortunately.
even the way you're describing it, I'm picturing it. This sounds okay. So here's the thing. So, uh, when we get towards the end, and because, like I said, I was so much more because I am very stupid in certain aspects. Even though like I watch so many movies, I like there are
Sure.
certain movies where I'm like, okay, you need to have this backstory, you need to do this trauma porn, like of blah 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 blah. But I was legitimately like, there's got to be a big crescendo when he, because clearly that's what we're leading up to, of how does he end up on the ship, and I was so interested in that. And we get to the scene where after they have the big explosion, and I was like, oh shit, here we go, this is how we're gonna find out. And they're in the meeting room, and right before that scene, and that's when she first teases the idea of, hey, like, they all start looking at him and they're like, we need a scientist on the ship. And he like kind of is like, oh, what are y'all looking at me for? And then he's like, he does the line, and it's the clip from the trailer where he goes, I can't even moonwalk, and it's like played for laughs. And I'm like,
Yep.
I'm like, see, that is the Marvel thing. That is the Marvel thing that I just don't like that. It's great for like young audiences and stuff, but I just kept thinking, you're gonna send this man to die. Like, that is a very, I'm thinking of, there are a lot of other movies, like you've probably seen, like Interstellar or like The Martian, or there's a great movie you should check out. It's called Sunshine, where the plot is extremely similar. It's with a bunch of actors, and I think it's from like 2010 or something. And it is like considered one of the best like modern sci-fi movies, and the plot is very similar, of like they gotta save the sun, and it's like a suicide mission, but it is such a darker tone, and I remember, like, serious, and I remember thinking, that is such a, like, I feel like that could be such a dramatic moment, and they're like undercutting it with like humor, like we're sending him to die. Yeah. And then we get to the next scene, and I gotta be honest, this was my favorite scene in the movie as well, because I remember I kept thinking about how you were mad about like revealing Rocky, and that was a big thing. Sure. To me, this was the big reveal that,
oh, for sure.
I gotta be honest, it did get me. It did get me really good, Josh, where she goes, oh God, it was so good. She goes, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. And she just goes, I'm trying to make you understand of what I'm about to do. And I was like, ooh! Yeah. And I knew exactly what was coming. And I was like, that was some cinema shit. Yeah. That was some cinema shit. I was like, oh, fuck. But yeah, and then I'm like, like that could have been such a more melancholy scene. I mean, it was really, that delivery was so good. And you can feel it in the audience of everyone going, oh, shit. But yeah, I felt like it hit because just the material alone was so good, but I felt like that could have hit so much harder with a different director.
And I could be wrong. There's a part of me that goes, oh, they had to choose, right? Like, oh, which direction are they going? They might have been able to do it, right? They might have been able to find the balance that the book did, right? And they might have been able to give you some of the seriousness, but still some of the quirkiness, and it might have balanced out well. I don't know, but unfortunately, I think they just leaned in on the quirkiness, and I get it. And because Rocky is a very fun, quirky character, one of my favorite.
You can sell toys.
Was yes, and it was when Rocky, or when Ryland is talking about like his ex or whatever, and how she dated some guy named Mark. And Rocky's just like, Rocky hates Mark, right? Just like a little, like, I laughed.
Was that in the book? Was not.
Do
you remember?
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Not that I remember. But I was just like, but it was part of the big reason why I love the book was Rocky as a character. He's a fun character. You love him. And so it's like, even though they spent more time focusing on him in this book, or I'm sorry, in this movie, like percentage wise, you still just didn't have enough time to connect with him. The scene, like in the book, you think Rocky's basically dead, right? Ryland thinks he's dead.
Mm.
And they just didn't make that right. And they're like, there's way more suspense and intenseness that happens. So, and sorry, my brain's going all over the place. There was another
I get it.
That I just think is interesting, that like once I explain this to you, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting. Right? They have the entire world, all of the scientists working on this project, right? On the astrophage, on how to get right. In the book, they make it very obvious that, like, yes, Ryland is a big part of it, and he's working very closely with Strat. But he's not like some special scientist. Like, there are plenty of other scientists who know a little bit more about astrophage, like certain aspects of it that Rylan does, right? And you get to talk to those scientists, and Rylan learns from those scientists, like, oh, wow, I didn't do that test. I didn't see that, right? So it's
Mm,
like, it's way more of this like global thing. Rylan is kind of less special in a sense, right? Where it's like, no, dude, like literally every scientist in the world is trying to figure out like all of the different aspects of this thing. But what happens is they realize, okay, we've got to send these scientists, and an engineer and a pilot into like an 11-year coma, okay? And there's a lot of problems with that. And they end up developing this machine that's able to do it, but it doesn't work on a lot
okay.
of people. There is a specific gene in your genes that they need to find. So there's a big part in the book where you're like, oh, Rylands and Strat are like kind of talking and arguing, like, we can't send the best scientist and the best pilot and the best engineer. We have to send the best that is that has this gene, right? Which severely limits their options, right? So it's like the people who get signed up, they're not the best pilot and scientists and all that. Rylan has to teach, the scientist person as much as he can because it's the best person that has the appropriate gene. Well, guess what? When they're testing everybody for these genes, Rylan has this gene. Okay. And if you are smart, which I'm also not smart, you might be able to see that foreshadowing in the book of, ooh, Rylan has that gene, right? And like,
Right,
oh,
right.
okay, so clearly something happens and blah, 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 blah. But that's not talked about at all in the movie,
I
right?
was gonna say, yeah, that none of that's even like
It's not
alluded
even
to.
mentioned. It's just like the explosion, right? The explosion that happens. I talked to my one buddy. He was like, I didn't even know what blew up.
That was see that's and that's kind of not to, but like that was going through my head a lot where I just kept thinking I feel like I'm watching an adaptation of a book and I feel like there's a lot of context I'm not getting here.
100%.
Where I felt like yeah, this is the entire fate of the world on and sure they show scenes in the flashbacks where they're in these big like they're on the naval ship and they have the meeting with like all of the nation people like leaders or whatever, but I never got a full sense that this was the entire world behind this project. Like
Yep.
and I remember thinking, does the rest of does the average person know that this team of astronauts is in space, like, or is this a top secret thing? I actually do they I think is it a top secret thing? No one knows that it's or like
I mean, Strat keeps things close to her chest, but like it's no secret that like the world is working on it, but they're not giving out the details of
okay.
exactly like everything that's like they're doing and working on and stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah.
on the ground, it felt like it wasn't doing a super good job of showing like how like global of a scale this is, because just in the beginning, the scenes we're getting is literally just Rylan and Carl going to the hardware store and like bonding over this little science project. Like, so it
Yep.
seems, and I remember even thinking to myself, I was thinking about what kind of character is Carl like in the book. I'm like, who is Carl? Is Carl just like a CIA agent working for Strat? Or is Carl are we meant to believe that Carl is also a scientist because he's getting pretty involved with Ryland, like looking at the like monitors and stuff with him? I'm thinking, is he also a scientist? Like, what's his role? So I was kind of wondering that too during those scenes. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah. So that was all going through my mind during the movie. Oh, there was something else I was gonna ask you. Oh, that was a crazy thing that I wonder if anyone in your theater or just anyone that you were with that didn't read the book had this thought, because I thought this was an interesting, weird moment, and I thought, was this something in the book? The scene when this was towards the end, I think it was either right before or after, during the scene where they have the karaoke scene.
Yep.
Was that or number one? Was that in the book?
What specific scene? If you're talking about any sexual tension between Strat and Ryland, there is none of that in the book, which I
Okay.
thought was odd in the movie.
Okay, I don't even know if that was explicit. That might have just, I thought maybe that was my projection.
No, everybody, I felt the same way. I asked people the same question. I was like, "Did you guys feel like there was like something maybe
Yeah,
like
it's
going
like
on?"
there was just that one moment when they were. I think
Yeah,
he went out for a cigarette, or someone went out for a
yeah,
cigarette, and
it's
and
weird. It's
there was like
weird.
a weird. I was like, wait a minute, like were they like about to like kiss or something?
There's none of that in the book. None of
Okay,
that.
I
And so
just thought
I
that.
also was like, I mean, I asked myself that question. I was like, did they want me to feel this way? But I was also just like, they know what they're doing. Like, how can you not watch this and go, what's going on here? Like, yeah. So that was
Yeah,
weird. I think one of the last things I just want to say too, just for like to defend the overall story, um, it's just like little things like this is that that building blowing up was a big thing, right, in the book, and it's like kind of glazed over in the movie. You just like
Mm,
don't even really know what happens. It's like a big deal in the book because Strat is crazy in like a good way, right? Like she
right.
is
Is will do
like
anything.
she'll do anything,
Ruthless.
right? And so she, for redundancy's sake, right, she has 2 crews. I think the Apollo missions, in
Mm,
real life always did this, right? You'd have a
mm,
backup, right? She would not let the backups, if I remember this right, and I think I do, she would not let the backups, like, hang out. Because she was like, if one of them gets sick, well, then the other one's gonna get sick, and then what's the point of having a backup? Like, they couldn't be in the same room together, right? Like, she kept the 2 crews separate entirely. So in the movie, that's not explained at all. There's a big explosion. Both scientists die, right? But in the book, you're like, wait, why were they both in that bit? Like they weren't supposed to be together. Well, you learn in the book that they ended up having this like weird little like lover spat. They weren't really dating. They were both just like, well, we're all gonna die soon, so we might as well have sex with each other. It's actually kind of funny.
sure. Yeah.
And so they're like banging basically, but then they're also like kind of like sneaking around, hanging out together when they're not supposed to. So they were both in that building when the astrophage detonated and blew up. And so that was like a huge thing, right? Like that was not supposed to happen. Strat was like, not happy, obviously, as you can imagine, because like they were in the same building, so they both died, and that's what causes Ryland to have to go on the mission as well.
Oh.
So once again, like we have little Easter eggs, little things like that aren't explained in the book that I just think gives more depth and validity to the plot and what's actually happening, and just makes it feel more weighted and real when you're reading it. So would definitely still recommend, even though I've spoiled so much of the book for anybody listening, but I
Sure.
would definitely still recommend reading the book if you watch the movie, enjoyed the movie. It's just going to enhance it that much
Yeah.
more. And I really do feel like you get attached and bonded to Rocky Moore, who's just such a cool character in my opinion.
Yeah, no. One of the things I did notice, this is kind of like a blockbuster movie trick thing that a lot of, especially modern blockbusters, will do. I really loved the music in this movie. The score I thought was fantastic. I know that's like not something that a lot of people pay attention to, but it was also not in a bad way. I didn't mind it, but I noticed that it was that they were pushing on that score heavy. There was a lot of music throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of times music can be used as a little bit of a crutch, to where we're meant to feel these emotions and the epicness of this story way more than we're actually seeing on screen. I don't know if I would necessarily say that, but I wonder if I feel like there was a creative calculation done here of they'll love Rocky because cute thing. They'll love Ryan Gosling because charming, and and the quips, and that like the whole plot of, right, like if you asked your average person walking out like what was the plot, they wouldn't really be able to tell you.
Mm.
I did think it was funny. This is just kind of an observation on the mission. I thought it was funny that I almost was thinking, is there a sequel to this book? Because I've heard that the author has ideas, but because my one thought was, well, this is just to get the information or the samples or whatever they need back to Earth. They still have to solve cure the sun, correct? Like they didn't act. Yeah, go ahead.
In the book, this and this was one of the few changes I don't mind, honestly, that they did in the movie. In the book, it's a little bit more cryptic.
Okay.
The movie ends with him on this planet, right? Rocky's planet. I love just the visuals of him being this like giant bubble. I just didn't imagine it like that in my head. I just thought they did such a good job. And he's like walking on this like basically like fake beach, right? Because Rocky's planet is like 1,000 degrees. I forget. In the book, you like learn a lot more about Rocky's anatomy and his planet, and he like lives in like super high gravity and pressure and heat and all this. So they made this whole bubble for Ryland, a fake beach, water, all of this stuff, right? And they're walking along the beach. And obviously then they've got the classroom, and it basically ends with him, still being a teacher, which I just thought was so cool, right? Now he's teaching a bunch of little Rockies.
Yeah, that was cute.
But I believe it's more so just like Ryland asking Rocky, like, hey, have you guys looked at Earth? And it's basically Rocky kind of confirming, like, I can't, I should Google it or reread the book again or something, but it's more so just Rocky going like, yes, we've like looked through our telescopes basically, and it looks like things are getting better on Earth. Like, it's not like solidified that like you don't know if the Beatles made it back home. Like, you're not entirely certain if it worked, if he still saved the world. But like, I compare it to the end of Inception, right? If you're an optimist, right? It's like, okay, he's spinning the top. Did it stop at the end? It's like, okay, unless you're a narcissist and just like you hate everything, and then you're like, nope, he was still living the dream. It's like, okay, no, like it was gonna fall over. But like one of my favorite endings, honestly, to a movie, right?
Sure, yeah, so, ambiguous can be good.
I don't think it was that ambiguous, but it was a little bit like you're not entirely certain. So when in the movie, you saw Strat like watching his film, right? Watching his video, introducing Rocky, them getting the beat. It was a little bit more like, okay, they've got the stuff that they need, and you just once again, maybe it's just the optimist in me, but like, that now that they have the information that they need, like they're gonna save the sun, right? It's gonna work, right?
Okay.
Now you can argue against that, and that's fine, but I'm gonna say no. It's he saved the world, right? He was able to save Rocky. He was able to get everything back to to Earth, and they're gonna save the sun.
Yeah, so. I felt like it was a very like much a we did it, Joe. Yeah. Like end of the mission, like No, it's just funny in my head. I was like, wait a minute. Like, it feels like this was the mission to get the plans to the Death Star, but then we still have to blow up the Death Star. Like, that's kind of what it was.
fair, yeah.
But that's, I mean, it didn't bother me. I just thought it was like, oh, that's like, it in my mind, I was like, oh, there could be like easily be a sequel to this. But no, yeah. No, it was clearly meant to be a hopeful, happy ending. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I thought the movie looked great. I love that there was so much color in it. I felt like it distinguished itself a lot from other movies in this kind of genre in recent years. I could also definitely tell from that quippiness and the lightheartedness, this was very much a Phil Lord and Chris Miller movie. When you watch their other movies, like I think I've told you before, like, so they're people always associate them most closely with the Spider-Verse movies, but I always remember that they didn't actually direct those movies. They were like the main producers, even though they're very heavily, they have a very heavy influence on those movies. But they did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, 21 and 22 Jump Street, and the Lego Movie. That's their history. And the Lego Movie is actually considered, I love the Lego Movie. It's considered like one of the best like kids movies in recent years, and it's got that same quippy dialogue, and it's very funny, and same thing with the Spider-Verse movies, but that tone is so much more appropriate for those stories. Where here, I don't even think it was inappropriate. I just thought it was a very specific creative choice that's not really for me, for this kind of story.
Yeah, that's fair.
But famously, did you ever see the Han Solo movie?
I did not. I did not. I know all about the drama with that though. So
Oh,
yeah.
how they got fired off of it
Yep.
because
kind of.
they were making it
Yep.
too funny.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like I like them as directors. You know, I think they made a good movie. It just So yeah. I think that's pretty much everything. I'm trying to think. I think and I'm assuming you liked Ryan Gosling.
Oh, I did. I can't
Yeah.
imagine. I think he did a great job. I really did. Right.
Yeah,
I think he's better looking than I imagine Ryland Grace.
I know.
As a
I know.
character, but just as far as his demeanor and everything, I think he nailed it. I mean, as far as the acting and the performances, I cannot complain at all. I mean, the more I think about it, the only problems I have with this movie is just comparing it to the book. The
Sure.
performances, the score, the visuals, the fact that they used an actual puppet for Rocky instead
Right.
of animation. Like everything else, I enjoyed. I loved. It was just, I think if you go in watching this movie as just a movie and not comparing it to the book, I think you're going to enjoy it. I just think for me, I have the downside of knowing the story already to every detail, every extent. And so you're always going to be like comparing it, which is just bad. But I do think if I can watch it again, which I plan to, I think I'll enjoy it even more. And so that's what I plan on doing.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely love to hear your reaction if you ever watch The Martian, the other book that the guy wrote. Because famously, The Martian, I mean, maybe we've already talked about this, but famously, The Martian also is kind of a little bit of a jokey movie. It's very I don't even want to say funny. It's very like crowd pleasing, like for a general audience. Like it's not as it's not as intense as something like Interstellar or like Arrival or Sunshine. But it is not like it is like the quirk and the lightheartedness is turned down like 40% compared to this movie. So it's interesting. Like I wonder if that, just seeing the difference of tones where it's like, oh, this is a little bit funny and jokey, but it's not nearly as much as this movie is. But then again, there's not like an alien to play off of. So yeah, anyway,
right,
man. But yeah, cool. Interesting. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Yeah. We'll have to chop it up again about something else soon.
For sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. It was fun to chat about. So I mean, yeah, I guess overall, I mean, I don't know if you do this. I guess my last question to you would just be like, you know, I know you like to score things on Letterboxd. For you personally, what did this how many stars was this for you?
I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
It's good. No, it's good. Like it really comes down to, I would not begrudge anyone from saying like, I mean, I wouldn't begrudge anyone for their opinion, but like just I could acknowledge like this is a very well done movie and a very and just it's good. It just that that Marvel tone,
just tone for you,
just really especially for a story like this, because like you describing the book to me was like, oh man, this could have been so much more like hit harder.
It could have been, but it would have had to been like longer, or
and it wouldn't have gotten as much money. It wouldn't have made as much money. Like,
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, it's about that money, and so and I hear it's doing pretty well. So
yeah,
I think they made the right decision in that department. So anyway,
all right. Well, thank you again, bud. All right.
Cool. Yeah, appreciate it.